Alright, so good afternoon everyone. Right now, it's now the start of the next panel. So before I introduce kung sino yung mga panelists, just a quick intro on what the panel will be all about. So over the last couple of months, and actually the last 1 to 2 years, two of the most important domains/topics would be on AI, especially generative AI, and then cloud security. And the reason why we're combining both in this amazing panel is they're really intertwined. A lot of companies would say, oh, let's push some generative AI projects. And we also want to make sure na we're able to secure the data being used by these generative AI projects. What we'll do is to simplify things a bit. We'll start first by answering generative AI-related questions, understanding how it impacts the work, the business, and of course, mga practical tips and advice, as well as now diving deeper into cloud security, and then we'll combine yung both topics in the succeeding questions. And later on, if you have questions also, you'll be able to ask the panel later. So, pwede naman yan, di ba? So, and we'll make sure na very relatable and something very close to what they're doing in their everyday work. That being said, so for each panelist na I'll call, nire-request ko lang for everyone to give a round of applause. So let's start with Sir Paul Sears, Senior Solutions Architect at Amazon Web Services. Next would be John Patrick Laurel, Team Lead, Full Stack AI Engineer at Blueworks Interactive Labs. Jaymar Somotsot, tama ba sa Sir? Sir Jaymar, Founder, Streetwebs, VP for Technology, DevCon Philippines. And then Nhyl Ibañez, Junior DevOps Engineer at Ingenuity Software. And then si Sir Kyle Nathan Naranjo. Tama sir, basa ko? Yes. Si Sir Kyle, Data Engineer at Thinking Machines, and also the Community Lead at Google Developer Group Davao. So again, with everyone here sa ating stage, let's give them all a big round of applause. Nakita niyo pa guys, for energy. So again guys, we're all lucky kasi we will get the advice that's really hard to get. And there, we will definitely start with, wala pa ako dapat dito. Wala pa dapat ako. Where do we start? Okay. So for the panelists, of course, before the panel starts, meron kami of course a few set of questions na we have prepared. However, as we go along, definitely the discussions will probably guide us somewhere. And later on, there will be members of the audience who would probably ask questions also. So the format will be free-flowing, and then if there are certain topics you want us to deep dive, just let us know. But the first question that I'll be asking you guys, something that I think is very relevant, is anyone can answer to get things started. Is AI hype or is it a real force? Then you can also introduce briefly within yourself and your work related to AI, and how you approach or interpret what's really happening right now. So I'll repeat the question, is AI hype or is it a real force? Is it something we should take seriously? Yeah. Who wants to answer?
I'll kick this off. So my name is Paul Sears. I'm with AWS. I've been with AWS for almost 9 years. And this is a very interesting question because I actually think the answer is yes for both. Because there's it is a force in many ways, and machine learning really enables applications and new ways to solve problems. We have demonstrated use cases that definitely benefit customers and businesses. But there's also a lot of hype, especially on the generative AI side of things. While generative AI is very powerful, it seems to be all the rage these days. There's still limitations. Everybody seems to think that Gen AI is super smart. It's not. All it is predicting what to respond based on what you asked it. It's just a prediction engine, same as normal ML, it just goes through deeper because it has the difference between Gen AI and regular AI regular AI services. That Gen AI has access to a larger set of data, a huge amount of data, and so it has more ability to find the answers you want. Plus, it works in a natural language format, so it feels like it's innovative. We're talking, having conversations. Under the covers, it's still deep learning neural networks. It's still the same technology, it's just much more complex. It's not self-aware, it can't think for itself. But on the forefront, we have things like AGI, right? The artificial general intelligence, which is on the horizon. That will be a game changer if it ever comes true. So I think we have practical use cases, including Gen AI, but we have a lot of hype about what Gen AI can do is solving all problems that it can't. But we're getting to the point, in maybe in the next 3-5 years, depending who you listen to, it may be coming out next week. You listen to certain companies, but that could be a really serious game changer. I just want to comment about AI. You should be taking advantage of it because one of the use cases of AI is that it lets you get away from doing most of the boring, repetitive tasks, right? So if you're a developer, we saw some tools we demonstrated that can help you make your coding easier. Or if you're an operations person, or you're a company, you want to do certain tasks faster, more accurately, you can use Gen AI to build agents and do these kind of simple things that don't add any value for you. And then you learn how to build those things. I think we need to shift into adoption of AI and how we build applications and then leverage them to do all the non-value adding work for us so we can do better things.
Perfect. All right. Sige, go back.
Hello, so again, I'm Laurel, AI engineer in Generative. So for my answer, I totally agree on what Sir Paul mentioned, but I'll just put some personal touch in it. So yes, it's overhyped. It's been there for AI in its general sense, been there for a long time, but the generative AI scene is pretty over. I think they're over promising on things that what they can do. But on my end, I want to answer, yes, it's of course on a personal level, because for some context, I got a new project on tech stack that I haven't used for 2 years, and having an AI companion on your end, it makes things like reviewing previous work that you've never done in the past months or years or so to be easier. So I think on a personal level, it's really helpful on focusing on much important tasks rather than doing the repetitive work of reading massive documentation just to get backtracked on a programming language or a tech stack that you've never used for 2 years. Because as you know, in tech, it moves very fast. So maybe the library that you've used for the past year is now deprecated, but with the help of AI, you can navigate what are the deprecated libraries or what are the latest trends, what are the common design patterns used now. So in terms of learning, personal growth, I think it's a good tool to use on a personal level.
We read past before we pass to the Jaymar. So hype or not hype?
I think my word would be over promising on a certain yeah.
But there's real impact.
Yeah.
There's real impact, but over promising.
Yeah.
Well, basically same with them. For me, it's really a hype. On my own experience, really, when you say AI, most are afraid with it. People are afraid of what they do not know. They tend to go in this mindset that we will lose their jobs. That's why it became hype when people talk about jobs. Because basically, they are afraid that they will be replaced. Restaurants have now virtual waiters or virtual, what do you call that? The one who takes order. And for me, here, it's really hard to put the boundary where you said that you can be totally replaced by AI and people are afraid because they will get out of job and here comes the big impact of where do you put yourself when it comes to upskilling. Because right now, when we talk about AI, the word upskilling, the career shifting comes out. So basically, it became a hype.
So hype or not hype?
Hype.
Hype. Okay.
Okay. So again, I mean Ibañez. For me, it's not that.
Oh, not hype. Hype. Okay. So A versus B. Kasi parang debate pala to. Go for it, go for it.
I think it's all about how you look at things. I want to mention Pat's answer. AI has been here since forever, right? But I think there's hype because I think this is the first time that AI has been generally accessible for everyone. Yeah, right. AI has been always there, but it was accessible for a few, for those who have resources. But now you can use ChatGPT, right, for free. So I mean, I think it's just that everyone has felt the impact. That's why you might see it as hype, but I think it's not. I think the hype that we have now, it's a culmination of what was been brewing since then.
Alright, so I'm Kyle, data engineer from Thinking Machines. So for me, I agree, admittedly, AI has a lot of impact. But at the same time, I share the same sentiments with Pats that although it has a lot of use cases at the moment, a lot of people are overestimating what it can actually do. So a lot of the times, like when companies try to advertise their products, they're always saying, "Oh, we have Gen AI features." But when you really think about it, is this really suitable for their use case, or are they riding along the AI hype? To also add about what Nhyl said about parang AI being democratized in a way and being more accessible. The fact that in 2017, like the Transformer was formally introduced, like in Attention is All You Need. I don't really think a lot of people cared, but when OpenAI released ChatGPT, suddenly when it's productized, a lot of people began to care about AI, started reading up on it and trying to figure out what kinds of use cases Gen AI could have in different kinds of industries. So, like to sum it all up, yeah, the impact of AI is definitely there, but I think it's over promising a lot of stuff at the moment, but the potential is there in the future.
So about the accessibility of AI, I totally agree. It's been around for a long time, and no one really knew how to use it or had ways to use it. The difference of generative AI is how you interface with it. It's no longer having to be a data scientist or an engineer to figure out how to build something to make the model do something you want it to do. Now you just have a conversation. I think that is what really opens the doors for accessibility, but at the same time raises the hype level to really, really high levels.
I'll try my own trick also. Moderator na sumama ka. I believe it's not hype. Not hype. So why? I think it's misunderstood. So, it's misunderstood. So I think the correct word is misunderstood. Why? So everyone here is correct. The reason being is when they're trying to market AI and generative AI, in my opinion, what happened there was they were trying to make it known to everyone by probably scaring everyone that's going to replace them with their current job. Even though that's not really going to happen. There's going to be AI assisted professionals But definitely, if you are on a certain level, let's say 70th percentile to 99th percentile, chances are that you won't be replaced by AI. AI will replace those who are probably in the 50th percentile and below. So if you're a knowledge worker, definitely more or less you're safe from AI replacing jobs. So last year, there were mentions of AI will not replace you, but those who master AI will. However, this year, especially the last 2 months, AI is already replacing jobs. So it's real. AI is really replacing jobs. So what is its impact to society? It means that everyone should understand what AI is capable of at the moment so that we are all able to equip ourselves and make sure that there's job security. So from my end, the best move is to become an AI engineer. Right? Because you're able to create that AI. But if you're a user of AI, you can get started with that. But if you're a user, then everyone else is a user also. Or not a user. So if you're an AI engineer or a machine learning engineer, then your value would be much higher because everyone is trying to produce generative AI systems. Because a lot of companies are really trying to push the boundaries. And the market has no idea of the true cost of AI. Because it's new technology. So 5 to 10 years from now, the cost and the market rates would now normalize, similar to the technology introduced 10 years ago. So for example, web app development or mobile app development. Right now, if you ask a person what could be a mobile app developer's salary, 10 years ago, it's hard to know, right? It could range from this number to this number. And right now, that's what's happening to AI. So the best move right now, whether it's hype or not hype, is for you to take advantage of the current force there. So it's not hype for specific use cases. So out of let's say there are 100 use cases, 20% of that's going to be useful for everyone. And the remaining 80%, you have to know how to scrutinize which one will not really work because of hallucination and other challenges with AI. So it's both hype and not hype. Ako rin sumagot, no? Anyway, just trying to help. Alright, so back to the real first question. So how can small startups leverage AWS resources to compete in the generative AI space along large enterprises? So let me repeat the question. So how can small startups, actually small or big now, how can startups leverage AWS resources and services to compete in the generative AI space alongside large enterprises? So who wants to? Yeah.
I'll start. I actually think startups have an advantage in this space because AWS, for example, offers a lot of incentives and financial help for startups to leverage AWS as a platform to build on. So in terms of financial incentives, like the Activate programs, those kind of things that we heard about earlier, that's a benefit because it costs startups less to invest. But I also believe that when you're using cloud and services like Amazon Bedrock, which gives you a very reasonable interface to access this technology, your costs can be predicted. You can decide how much you want to spend, and I think it levels the playing field. I think they now give startups and anybody, any small companies and medium companies, the opportunity to build something with the same capabilities an enterprise can do with potentially a lot less investment, right? Because enterprises also tend to do things in a certain way that has a lot of investment, whereas startups think differently, right? So I think the key here is they're leveraging a platform that has those capabilities for them, and that is the enabler for them. I think there's some advantages for startups on the incentive side of things to do that on AWS.
Who wants to answer next? Go ahead.
I'll double down on what Paul said about startups having an advantage over enterprises because For enterprises, I think the important thing here is the leadership, right? So there could be a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of things to make happen. But when you're a startup, you're always actively looking for the right solution, right? And as new solutions come up, new problems arise. And I think that the nature of the organization, the fast-paced, continuous improvement, like short feedback loops, it's what startups can make very effective. So that's fine.
Great, great. So sorry, just a follow-up question. So right now, there's a bit of comparison on how AI is used in startups and enterprises. So just a quick side question. What's your definition again of a startup versus an enterprise? I mean, what are the key differences? And then we can go back to answering that question. Do you mean that if it's a startup, it's like a company at year zero, very minimal like governance requirements, minimal operational requirements? Is that what you call a startup and they're trying to be disruptive? They're trying to solve gaps?
Yeah, if you say it like that, then yes.
Okay. So going back there.
I agree. I think that enterprises typically have a history and they have a lot of technical debt. They have a lot of old ways of doing things and need to go forward into that. And so I think that's the primary difference. It's not about money because you can have very well funded startups and very poorly funded enterprises. But I think it's a nature of how they evolved and now with the startups, most of them are they're born in the cloud, they're born in tech, so they have those advantages. I think that's kind of distinguished here is that startups act faster, make decisions faster because they have less bureaucracy, less technical debt to drag along with them, right?
And then to add, sometimes enterprise are a bit more conservative because they don't know the impact.
Less risk, right? Less risk.
To go to a tangent about startups versus enterprise, I probably talk about like the financial problems that startups often face. A lot of the times they fail because they run out of money. And a way that AWS could help even out the playing field in a way is to help startups leverage more elastic resources or even their pay-as-you-go pricing model, which helps them not invest too much on front-loaded costs or capital expenses, and instead focus on their current capabilities and then scale up as they mature or get more users. So yeah, I think that's one way how AWS can even the playing field.
What I can add is more on the as Paul mentioned about startup really design fast. Maybe the area that I can say it's great because more gray area in terms of that startups usually has this new shiny syndrome where what's new they use it immediately even though it's not they use it. So especially now with AI, we're trying to use this one because we think that this is good, but later on found out that it's more costly. And the good thing if you're using AWS, you can just again use it as pay as you go, and you can try things faster, easier, and less configuration.
Okay. All right. So to add, definitely, if you guys are planning to build your own AI solutions, whether you're in a startup or an enterprise or any company, from experience, try to check Bedrock. So just to add to the conversation, when we built our own internal ChatGPT, so we built our own ChatGPT. We called it NuWorks AI, and then we are using SageMaker, using its self-hosted infrastructure. But then, of course, it has its own assumptions. And Bedrock has its own advantages. So when you're starting with LLMs, large language models, generative AI, definitely the first thing to do is check bedrock. And then when you want to go deeper, understand the machine learning engineering process, then that's the time you could check the other features of Bedrock, SageMaker, as well as the other AI capabilities distributed across the different services of AWS. So again, that's regardless if you're in a startup or in a corporate environment, because again, either way, you have to be very practical. Are you guys ready for the next question? All right. So can you share some real-world applications where AWS Generative AI has been successfully implemented to drive business value? So I will repeat the question. Can you share some real-world applications or examples where AWS Generative AI has been successfully implemented to drive business value? It's not necessarily in your own company, but maybe you have seen it in startups and in the market. Yeah, so I think us learning about the real-world applications should help everyone else understand how powerful generative AI is at the moment. Who wants to start?
Alright, so for this story or context, it's in my previous company. So previously, I was a head of data science in a European short stay industry. So it's like we support property managers of Airbnbs, Booking.com in England. And when ChatGPT started, we got credits in AWS startup funds as well. And that's when we started playing around AWS AI services. So this is not just back then, wala pang Bedrock. There's no Bedrock yet. It's just we're just building our own stuff with SageMaker, and when we say AI services, there are others as well, no? Like Tesseract, Textract, and other AI stuff like Translate and whatnot. And we use those small tools to automate some of our processes, such as invoicing, automating messages on, hey, give a snap on this checking out unit, check out name, user, automate those process, and we get to deliver value to our property managers because they won't need to put so much hands-on because the processes are automated using different suite of AI services in AWS, and it's very, very simple to do, except the financial part wherein we predict revenue, what are the days where you can put a high price in your property. Like in holidays, maybe you can price it this way, and in that way we use SageMaker, and I think it worked really well because if we have this optimized pricing in Airbnbs or short stay properties, we get to book more. We get more bookings because the price is fair for both the property manager as well as the customer. So that's how we use it in my previous work.
Wait lang, Pats, before we proceed na. Akala ko ba, Pats, hype ng AI? Tapos kaya ka pala sa company ng AI power na. Baka pinipigilan mo lang silang mag-aral ng AI para ikaw yung expert na sila lahat hindi mag-aral ng AI. No? Pero again, that's one use case. So as mentioned earlier, joke lang yun. Out of, let's say, 100% ng possible use cases, yung 20% dun yung kailangan yung hanapin. Kasi nandun yung totoong value ng generative AI. The rest, para either baka mamaya nag-hallucinate or mababa yung quality. So it's actually a quality game, and you need to understand the domain also where generative AI is applied. So in this case, for facts, with or without AI, you should be able to solve real human problems. And then use AI and its strengths to either speed up processes or produce new value that was never seen before without AI. Who wants to go next?
So I work with a lot of customers in various domains in the Philippines, and Philippines has a large number of BPO and call centers. We see some actual applications, generative AI technologies, particularly in call centers, around engaging the agents on a live call and how to guide agents and how to respond, particularly in challenging situations. So these BPOs and call centers are doing, they're deploying Gen AI in line, grabbing the audio in real time, converting, transcribing it, and basically then feeding it in Gen AI. Gen AI will summarize the call in real time for the agents and make recommendations. Do this, recommend this, make this the next step. And it improves the call quality and satisfaction on the customer, because BPOs and call centers care about net promoter scores and CSAT scores more than anything else, because that's their metrics for their contracts, right? Those are the big value for them. So, and also it reduces the agent time, because a lot of times afterwards, a call's over, agents might need to summarize the call and make notes on it. Well, now you have real-time call summarization, and now you cut all the time out. In fact, we have a use case from an insurance company in the US. They reduced their call times by 30% because they let AI summarize everything in real time. So as soon as the agent hung up with that call, everything was done. And that is an amazing productivity boost in that regard. So we see a lot of Gen AI around those customer interactions, customer experience impacting interactions, chatbots. You know, we have a customer, a wallet company, just updated their latest chatbot. But even behind the scenes, if you're in financial industries or you need to identify identities, KYC is very important. We have a number of payments and wallet companies that use KYC using services on AWS as recognition and Textract, and not even Gen AI. They're just using traditional AI services to able to analyze and detect and go for fraud and duplications and fake identities and stuff, right? So it's out there and it's being used, but that's just a few. There's actually a lot more cases. I would say that I would disagree a little bit. I think there's probably more like 40% of use cases that are valid, and the rest are still figuring out, can I make it valid, right?
Perfect. What's the goal?
Let the debate continue.
Yeah. just kidding. Yeah, go for it.
So one particular project that I know of that used Gen AI was basically there was an e-commerce customer that had multiple channels, so say Shopee, Lazada, social media pages, and all of that. And their problem was figuring out a way to streamline the process of not only responding to those inquiries, but also taking action on it. So one project that TM did was to use Gen AI to, well, not Gen AI yet, but first we have to construct a data pipeline to consolidate all of the channels, have one single view of like all the customers, all the inquiries, and after that's done, we use Gen AI to do sentiment analysis and then figure out the response to that. After a response has been determined, the next step would be to act on it. So, for example, when someone asks, "Is there an item for this?" Or are there still stocks for this item? The engineering solution should be able to respond to it by searching through the existing database and then answer the customer. So as far as I know, after implementing that solution and undergoing UAT, I believe they were able to have a 140% increase in responses. So I think that's a demonstration of like how Gen AI could be used to drive business value.
So not hype pala. Not hype. Tinitigilan niya sila from being part of the course. Okay, we do. So I actually have a question for everyone. So the next set of questions kasi here are parang mga deep dives na. But a lot of members here are probably wondering, would it make sense to at least study AI, generative AI, and if yes, what would be your advice in order to accelerate in learning to either become an AI engineer or a machine learning engineer? Because a lot of us are saying, yeah, AI has its value. There are a lot of projects with it, and companies and startups are actually investing on AI solutions and even converting their own like strategy to be AI powered. So my question for you guys is, if you were to study AI again from zero, from scratch, how would you have done it differently? Because right now you guys are experts. But if there are members here who want to start from scratch, they probably have a good idea on how software development works, do some API integration. If they need to study and learn AI engineering in, let's say, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, how would you have studied it now? Who wants to go first?
So I have a huge bias on learning first machine learning engineering. So this is not machine learning research or being machine learning scientist where you create your own models, do some nitty-gritty mathematics. Although when I started learning, I went ground up, so I learned statistics, linear algebra, and calculus. But I won't recommend that step because it's burnout inducing. Because you don't see your results immediately. Like you have an equation, where's the output, right? So what I would recommend is to get your hands dirty on how you pipe your data from this raw resource into a powerful thing that can drive insight, that can drive an output. So yeah, I have a bias in machine learning engineering and data engineering. Get your hands dirty first on those processes, and if you understand that on how that full pipeline or how that full data flow is done, I think AI engineering would be easier to study rather than getting started with the AI engineering. So I would say those two big components first.
Wait a minute before you pass it. How about data science? You're saying data science. Right. So you're going to straight into engineering without understanding the data science part.
Well, I think. Okay. So, I'm not sure when I studied data engineering, machine learning engineering, I already have like an appreciation of the science part of it. So I can't say, like, I can't reason out right now on if it's that important, I would say. I would say if you want to drive innovative things such as creating your new GPTs and whatnot, it would be pretty important. Like if you want to create your GPT 10 or something, that would be pretty important to learn, right? Like having a master's, PhD, and those things. It would be the most important step. But if you want to create AI-powered applications, I think 80% of the job there is how you can pipe your application into acquiring that specific feature rather than understanding, okay, why does AI result in this specific output, right? Like you won't need to understand why it predicts that way. You just need you don't need to map the math to understand why it predicts that way, but you need at least an overview of the concept on how it works. So I think that's the important part if you want to get started in AI engineering. But of course, I agree that like upskilling never stops, right? So feel free to supplement your learning by understanding the math, like reading arxiv researches and whatnot, and it will give you a better view on how these things like para sila na po or para sila how they work pretty much.
So I would give a different answer now than I would have given 2 years ago. But I think one thing that you touched on and you jumped on was the data side. There's a rule in machine learning AI, Gen AI, garbage in, garbage out. You need to manage your data. And everything in Gen AI is all about the data. The advantage there is unstructured data, massive amounts, but you still need to make sure there's some quality to it. So I think having data engineering, data science, not so much data science, but more about data engineering, how to measure quality and make sure data makes sense is a very important skill to make sure you're picking the right domain in machine learning, AI, deep learning, to solve the right problem, right? Because as I presented earlier, there's different levels of machine learning or AI with machine learning and deep learning and Gen AI. and we're gonna have more beyond that. So not everything is right for everything. You can't make a Gen AI in the kitchen sink, right? It's gonna be specific, appropriate use cases for certain kinds of machine learning or Gen AI. So I think that's the important aspect. So you want to know the data, but then again, also I think you need to worry about less now. How to do things like how to pick the right model for your data, because we have automated tools to do that now that weren't there 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, I would have said you better understand data science, you better understand how to figure out how this data set relates to the problem you want to solve, and then find the right algorithm to solve that. But now with like Data Wrangler and AWS, let it figure it out for you. AutoML, let it do things for you, right? So we're building that, and Gen AI is actually accelerating that, because now you're using Gen AI to figure out how to do things, and it takes away a lot of the I think we're losing the art. We're going to lose the art of the science, and the people who know that piece of it, the under the covers, deep stuff, is going to be the ones that are really going to be vital down the road. I think those are the skill sets. I remember a year ago, prop engineers were making massive salaries in the U.S. It's kind of settled down now, but you could get $1 million U.S. salary because you were an expert on how to engineer prompts for Gen AI applications. That's still an important skill, and I think there's going to be more skills coming out beyond that. But again, as every year you ask this question, I think the answer is going to change a little bit, because AI is starting to solve its own problems on its own. It's getting the ability or capability to start doing that. So I think that's changing the landscape. So how do you take advantage of that in your careers? What do you do? Number one, stay in tune. Know what's happening, the trends, and try to keep up skilled on the latest concepts and why they exist. What makes generative AI different than deep learning? What makes it different than machine learning and certain algorithms, right? So understand that, right? I think it's very important. Understand how data plays a role in this. Make sure you understand your data. And then start thinking about new ways to solve problems, but I think that's experimentation, right? But it's not necessarily a skill, it's a curiosity that you need to have. So develop your curiosity and say, hey, can I do this with this? What would happen if I try this? I think that is a value. So you're going to keep growing and learning automatically as Gen AI moves, or as AI develops and matures, you will also develop and mature more. Yeah, 50 years ago, you had to get really deep into the math to write an algorithm to do a model, right? But now it's very different in environment and landscape.
What's the limit?
So, sir, I think it's probably the best time, right, to include the audience in our
They have
conversation.
yeah.
So, anyone here who has a question for Hey, come here.
Meron pala.
Meron.
Can challenge
So,
yung mga analysts.
I suggest, to everyone here, start formulating your questions.
Meron tayong new panelist. Pwede pa kasi, buha nga. Bigyan nila or the bravery.
So hello, I'm Marv, and I wanted to give context to my question because this is important to me. So basically, I am a musician, and not just that, I am a composer. In other words, I make music, and there is like a buzz between music and creative arts and generative AI that let's just say artists and composers do not like generative AI, and they thought that generative AI is like it's like a shortcut to like being a composer and all. They thought that they're like gonna take away their their jobs and their skills into the machine stuff. So so this is the question. What are your thoughts on using generative AI for creative purposes, and if you have anything at all, what are your advice to those anxious people in the creative space that are afraid of losing their creativity and skills to generative AI? And that's my question.
Who wants to... Alright, exciting.
Creatives daw, patay. Anyway, so this has been a debate actually in some of the clients that I have. Because I serve a company who does image classification, and we classify not safe for work at them because we do anti-pornography. It's another pornography company that deals with porn addiction. So this is where it also affects the creatives, because right now we know how to detect those images, that's it. But when it comes to generated by AI, somehow the classifiers are being they mess things up because it's the output of another AI. And we found out that what's the effect in the context of artists. You create music or you create images, and some would say that will be out of inclusion because most people are now dependent on AI. They don't hire artists anymore. They use the image generation, and then people are now going into like hiring AI musicians as a gift to like compose me a song for my fiancé for that. Well, it's really happening right now. And for me, what really the creative industry do is to not go against it, embrace it, and still the one thing that AI can do is to provide the human touch. Because right now, sentiment analysis is there, but it still depends on what you feed the AI. It's not an opinion of the AI, because that opinion came from someone else, generated from thousands, billions of data coming from other people. So I would say that in the creative industry, all you need is to stay with your talent, hone it more. Make people realize that really there's a difference with what the human hand can do and the generated by computer I can do.
Great, great. I would like to add to that point. Okay.
Answer everything. So I think this is a very interesting question, and I agree, embrace the technology. But there's a thing that we have to understand. There are limitations of Gen AI. It's not aware. And you have one advantage as a composer or producer is that you have an ability to think ahead and intuitively decide if it makes sense or not. Gen AI is just going to use the vast number of knowledge it has available to it to try to figure out what makes sense. But you, as a musician, says, "Oh, this is garbage," because it doesn't make. It may make sense musically, but it doesn't have the vibe, the soul behind it. So I think that's where you can embrace those tools to maybe give you foundational stuff. And I think we're a long way until we have Gen AI playing music properly, because they can't, the part of the soul of a musician is how they play an instrument, right? The passion they put into it. We're not going to get there for a long time because there is no soul in Gen AI. It's just predicting, right? So it can build a song, and it may be even a catchy song, but it doesn't quite have that soul. I think that's where you guys focus on that, and you pointed out the human touch. That is what makes it different. So don't shy away and embrace it, and use it when it makes sense. Use it when, like for example, if you're a game developer and you're generating tons of assets, Gen AI makes a lot of sense. Why not? You always see these generative, computer-generated worlds and stuff. And yeah, that's great. Because that's a lot of boring, repetitive, no-value work, right? So there's place for it. But yes, your concern about beginning to take over is valid. We see all this on YouTube now. Is this an AI song or not? I discovered a random band that's an AI band. I didn't know it. And it's like, wow. And so we need to get better about marking what is real, what is human created versus machine created. I think that also needs to come with this as well, as you need to know that. Like you're finding out, is this image generated by a computer or a human or by a natural technology? It's going to be hard to do. So we have to put the safeguards in place to make sure that AI is used responsibly when appropriate. So I think that's what we have to rely on. It's not going to go away. It's just going to get better and better. And eventually, one day, it might be better than us. But then your job, your advantage is guiding it. Your advantage is with how you can assemble what you think is magic in your head. You can imagine. Machines can't. That's your advantage.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so are you happy with the Yeah, go for it. Go for it. There's a follow-up question.
So, as a musician, I take pride of my work, and as a because of that, I had a very negative impression of AI because before I took like computer science, I shied away from AI at all because I thought that AI is gonna make people lazy and stuff and prevent people from to think, you know. But as I learned about AWS and generative AI more deeply, that impression kind of went away. But it is still there. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna add.
I'd like to
Add your soul.
yes, I'd like to quickly add a few statements there. So generative AI is there. I agree, people could get lazy. But I think that the best way to know whether you're using AI or not properly is, again, you're producing something for someone. So if that someone assesses your output as either good or bad, that's where you will know whether you're using AI properly or not. So it is possible to, let's say, for example, if you're writing a book or a blog post, you can have your AI tool generate the entire blog post. But then you'll realize that the quality level of that blog post is somewhat lower and somewhat plagiarizing something. So if you're a human, you are a human, then I would recommend that you modify 60 to 80% of what's pre-generated by generative AI, built on top of what's already available there, and use generative AI to kickstart at the beginning. But the customization and you're going to humanize it with your own experiences because at the end of the day, generative AI is just there to make use of the patterns and the data in the past to produce new data. But again, as mentioned, the soul, the meaning, and the intelligence actually comes from the human building on top of what's already available. So if you were, let's say, writing a blog post, if you could use AI to help speed things up, but you need to take care of the quality, then probably you need to change 50 to 70% of what was already written.
Alright, so thank you, Marks. Thank you, Marks, for your bravery. Okay, so I think we have four more questions. Four more. So, and at the same time, we're running out of time. So I think we can limit. Yeah, I think we can limit the. The answers. The answers. Okay, so thank you, Mars.
Thank you, good job.
So, more brave persons come up on stage. Alright.
Good afternoon. I'm Gab, computer science student from UP Mindanao. So here's my question. As generative AI becomes increasingly integrated into various fields, do you think that prompt engineering should be taught as a prerequisite course in college, considering that generative AI and prompt engineering go hand in hand and play a critical role in effectively interacting with AI systems? Would making it a required course make students more lazy and dependent on AI? And also speaking from personal experience, I sometimes rely on generative AI with some of my programming exercises. Does this imply over-reliance or just simply leveraging available AI technologies?
Okay, so I think the answer to your question will be dependent on who you ask it to. Right? So if you're asking me, also a computer science student who heavily depends on generative AI, then go. So,
Arvin.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Or-
I have a calendar which may not be popular. JI is a great tool to use, and I think building applications is an excellent resource for that. But you're in school to learn how to think and a way to develop. And when you let ChatGPT or someone else do it for you, you're missing out on that piece. That's what I think is the problem. It's not necessarily the tool itself, is what are you learning from that particular skill you're trying to do. I think that's something to think about. I'm not saying Genai is wrong, but you need to think about how does it affect you, how are you getting guided on that. Just to pass a course or to actually become an expert in that particular domain, right?
If I may add, on my own, I'm the most laziest person because that's my motto, be lazy. If you can, be lazy in the sense na you're not going to work, but be lazy in the sense that if you can automate everything, automate everything. That's how you deal with being lazy. For me, it's a matter of management if you require from the prompt engineering or on the classes, but it really depends on how you use the prompt. Because on my end, I do not let the AI generate and then I use that directly. Whenever I use AI, if you're familiar with RAG or retrieval augmented generation, so you put input first. That's why whenever I try to learn something new or I want AI help me, I usually give my full context. Because that's the part where you are putting your brains to work. What will you ask the AI? And whenever AI generates a lot of text. And then I'm not sure if everyone are doing this, but I usually ask, why do you think that goes? That's my hardware always. Whenever it's out information, why do you think it's that way? So that I can also know why give me that answer. So never really rely on just the moment that you put the input, the output capitalization. It's pretty dumb. For me, it's pretty dumb that you always take it directly without even thinking if it's right or wrong. Because again, as Arvin mentioned earlier, that AI hallucinates. So really be careful.
Yes, thank you so much. I think there's one final.
I think the end na natin ng question. Proceed to the next question. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you so much for
Thank you for your question and thank you guys for your answers. Okay, so for time out. All right, so in this section, our organizers has called a time out. Yeah. We are really sorry for the inconvenience, but since we are running out of time, I think that
we can end the session. Yeah.
right. Yes.
Also, just a quick one. So, for those who are part of the line here, thank you so much. We'll try to answer your questions after the panel. We were really surprised that there were a lot of questions. But for now, given that we're already way over time, but yeah, so again, let's give everyone a big round of applause. And